What happens when a prince walks onto a cozy British sofa expecting adoration, and instead meets a presenter who's not afraid to ask what everyone else is thinking? On this morning, beneath the soft lighting and friendly chatter, Prince Harry thought he was in safe territory. But as Allison Hammond's questions grew sharper and his answers more arrogant, the smiles faded, the tension rose, and daytime TV turned into a live-fire confrontation. By the time it was over, the nation wasn't talking about his new project. They were talking about the moment Allison finally snapped and told him to leave. The This Morning studio looked exactly as viewers loved it. Warm light pouring through the fake windows, pastel cushions perfectly arranged on the big corner sofa, mugs on the coffee table, the London skyline glowing softly on the screen behind. Everything screamed comfort, familiarity, easygoing British chat. Everything except the man sitting on the end of the sofa. Prince Harry lounged back, one arm draped over the cushion, legs spread a little wider than necessary. He wore an expensive but casual gray suit over a black shirt. His jaw was clenched, though, and his eyes flicked around the studio with a mixture of boredom and suspicion. Allison Hammond sat opposite him, perched slightly forward, hands joined on her knee. She smiled wide and genuine as ever. Next to her, Dermot O'Leary shuffled his notes, shooting her a quick, "Here we go" glance before turning his trademark easy grin on their guest. "Good morning, everybody," Allison beamed, looking straight down the camera. "We have a very special guest on the sofa today. He's been the talk of the town, around the world, all over the headlines. Prince Harry is here." The studio crew gave a polite burst of applause. Harry managed a controlled nod and a tight-lipped smile, lifting his hand in a small, almost reluctant wave. "Harry, welcome," Dermot said smoothly. "Nice to have you with us." "Yes, well," Harry shrugged, his voice clipped. "Thought I'd give daytime another chance." The joke, if it was one, landed with a dull thud. Allison laughed anyway, her instinct to keep things light kicking in. "We're honored you chose this morning, babes," she said warmly. "We're very chilled here, no grilling, just a chat." Harry's eyebrow twitched. "We'll see," he replied, and there was enough steel in his tone that Dermot's smile faltered for half a second. Allison pressed on. "So, Harry, you're here today to talk about your new mental health initiative, which I think is amazing," she began, tapping the card in her hand. "You've been very vocal about your own struggles. How are you doing, really?" It was the gentlest, kindest opener she could have chosen, yet Harry's response came wrapped in thinly veiled irritation. "How am I doing?" he repeated. "Better than I was when I lived in a gilded cage? Let's put it that way. I've escaped the circus. Now I just have to deal with the clowns asking about it." Allison blinked once. The word clowns hung in the air like a bad smell. Dermot shifted slightly, clearing his throat. "Well," Dermot said lightly, "luckily for you, we quite like being clowns around here." The audience chuckled, easing the tension a bit. Allison let out a big, generous laugh. "Yeah, love, if I'm a clown, I'm the one with the best lipstick," she joked, pointing to her face. Harry gave a small huff of amusement, but there was no real warmth in it. "You said it, not me," he murmured. Allison ignored the jab. She'd been in front of cameras long enough to know when a guest came in, prickly. Her job was to draw them out, not push them over the edge, at least not yet. "Let's go back a bit," she said, tone gentle. "People here grew up watching you, Harry. The little boy walking behind his mum's coffin, the naughty teenager, the soldier in uniform. When you look back at that young Harry now, what do you feel?" For the first time, something like emotion passed over his face. His jaw worked, and he looked down at his hands. For a second, everyone in the studio felt the weight of the question. Then his eyes hardened. "I feel," he said slowly, "like he was sacrificed to keep a myth alive, to keep everyone else comfortable. Everyone loved the image of that grieving boy, but nobody cared about the person behind it. Not the institution, not the press, certainly not the public." There was a beat of silence. Allison's smile faded into a sympathetic frown. "I think that's a bit harsh on the public, Harry," she said softly. "People watching at home cared very deeply." "Did they?" he cut in. "Or did they just enjoy the story? People love a tragedy, Allison. It gives them something to talk about over their tea." Dermot shifted again, his fingers tapping his notes. "I think people would say they admired your mum and felt for you, mate," he offered carefully. "I know I did." Harry's gaze snapped to him. "Admiration doesn't bring anyone back," he said sharply, and it certainly didn't stop the cameras from hounding her until she crashed in a tunnel. The mood on set dropped a few degrees. Even the steady hum of the studio equipment seemed to quieten. Allison took a slow breath. She understood pain. She also understood when someone was using it as a weapon. "Of course it didn't," she replied gently. "And nobody's trying to minimize that. Your mom meant a lot to this country. She still does. I think people just want to make themselves feel better about what happened," Harry interrupted again, a bitter edge in his voice. "You're all very good at that. Rewrite the story so you look like the heroes." There it was, the first flash of true arrogance, not just defensiveness. It washed over the sofa like a cold wave. Dermot glanced at Allison. She gave the tiniest shake of her head. She could handle this. She straightened slightly, her tone still soft, but more grounded. "Okay," she said, "let's talk about your version of the story then. You've left the royal family, you've spoken openly, you've written a book. Some people say you've already told everything there is to tell. Why keep going? Why another initiative, another interview, another spotlight?" Harry gave a humorless smile. "Because as long as people like you keep asking, there's clearly more to say." The audience let out a small, uneasy laugh, unsure if it was supposed to be funny. "All right," Allison said slowly. "But we're not dragging you here, babe. You chose to come on." "I chose to come on," he replied, "to discuss important work, not to be poked at like some exhibit from a broken dynasty." Dermot rubbed his forehead. "We're just chatting, Harry," he said, still trying for friendly. "It's this morning, not a tribunal." "Feels the same from this side of the sofa," Harry shot back. Allison's eyes flashed for a fraction of a second, the first sign of annoyance. She masked it with a smile, but the warmth was dimmer now. "Okay then," she said. "Let's talk about the work. You've said your new project is about helping people feel heard and respected. Do you ever worry that when you speak about your family so publicly, they don't feel that same respect?" Harry's laugh was sharp this time. "Respect? You think they respected me? That system respects titles, not people. If they want respect now, they can start by apologizing to me and my wife for what we went through." "And what would that apology look like?" Allison pressed, still calm. "A phone call? A statement? A private conversation?" "Try a lifetime of silence," Harry said coldly. "No briefings, no leaks, no smears, just leaving us alone. Something the British media seems incapable of." He looked pointedly at the cameras as he said it, as if this morning itself were part of the machine he despised. Dermot shifted, about to change the subject, but Allison wasn't ready to let it slide. The viewers at home deserve more than rehearsed bitterness. "Harry," she said gently but firmly, "you do realize you're sitting on national television right now, yeah? You're not exactly choosing silence yourself." For the first time, a few people in the audience clapped, a small burst of approval. Harry's eyes narrowed. "Difference is," he said through tight lips, "I'm telling my truth, not selling someone else's." Allison smiled, but this time there was a sharper glint behind it. "Well," she replied, "here on This Morning, we like to think the truth can handle a few questions." The tension thickened. The show's producer, watching from behind the cameras, signaled for a break, but they still had a minute to fill before the ad bumper. Dermot gave a nervous laugh. "On that note," he said, "don't go anywhere. After the break, we'll be talking to Harry about life in America, his kids, and what he really thinks about the monarchy today." Harry sat back, crossing his arms, jaw set. Allison kept her smile, but her eyes stayed locked on his. The music swelled. The director called, "And we're out." The red light on the camera went off, but on that sofa, the interview was only just beginning to crack open, and everyone on set could feel that the next segment was going to be far more explosive than the first. The moment the cameras shut off for the commercial break, the studio temperature seemed to drop. Crew members hovered uncertainly. Makeup artists pretended to check their kits, and even the studio interns, usually buzzing with clipboards, kept their distance. Prince Harry sat rigid on the sofa, arms crossed tightly, lips pressed into a flat, hostile line. His foot tapped impatiently on the carpet, as if every second spent here was beneath him. Across from him, Allison Hammond inhaled deeply through her nose, summoning every inch of her famously sunny patience. Dermot O'Leary leaned closer to her. "You all right?" he muttered out of the corner of his mouth. "Peachy," she whispered back, with a smile she definitely wasn't feeling. The floor manager raised his hand. "Back in 5, 4, 3, 2... The red light blinked on. "Welcome back to This Morning," Dermot said, turning his smile up to full wattage. "We're here with Prince Harry, talking about his new mental health initiative." Harry didn't smile. He didn't move. He stared ahead, jaw tight, as if the interview were a punishment. Allison kept her voice bright. "Now, Harry, love, we want to shift gears a bit and talk about your life in America. You've spoken before about how freeing it feels. What's the biggest difference for you?" Harry gave a small, dismissive shrug. Freedom, privacy, basic respect. All the things the UK apparently struggles to provide. It was coated in venom. Allison blinked slowly. "Well," she said politely, "that's quite a statement." "It's quite a reality," Harry snapped back. Dermot cleared his throat. "You've said before that the paparazzi are less intense in the US. Do you think that's helped your family adjust?" Harry scoffed. "I think it helps when people don't treat you like a zoo animal for existing." Allison clasped her hands and decided to try the gentlest approach. "We've all seen the clips of you and Megan at events in California. You look happy, settled. Does Archie understand any of what's going on?" Harry frowned, annoyed. "Archie is a child. That's what he understands. Why don't we keep my children out of public conversation?" Allison's eyebrows lifted. "I'm not prying, babes. I'm asking because you've spoken about them so lovingly in interviews. Only natural people are curious." Harry tilted his head at her with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "Funny how the media loves pretending it's concerned about my kids' well-being, when it's the media that endangered them in the first place." That stung. The crew shifted uncomfortably. Dermot opened his mouth, but Allison gently placed a hand on his arm. She had it. "All right," she said softly, but there was an edge to it now. "Let's talk about your brother. You've said your relationship with William is complicated." Harry let out a harsh laugh. "That's a polite way to put it." "Well," Allison said, leaning forward slightly, "a lot of viewers wonder whether there's any hope for reconciliation. Do you see a world where you and William sit down together?" Harry's eyes narrowed. "Not unless he wakes up one day and decides to stop being a puppet." Dermot winced. Allison kept her face neutral but firm. "That's harsh, Harry." "It's true," Harry snapped. "Everyone wants to pretend William is the golden boy, the heir, the perfect prince. Meanwhile, the spare is the one they throw under the bus." Allison tilted her head. "Do you really think that's how people see you?" Harry looked at her as though the question were idiotic. "It's how they've always seen me. I wasn't born to matter." Allison inhaled slowly. "I think a lot of people would disagree with that. You've done meaningful work. You've served in Afghanistan. You've been blamed for everything since birth?" Harry cut in. "Yes, I'm aware." Her patience was thinning. Dermot tried to jump in. "Harry, mate, you do matter. People care. You can feel the room, yeah? People are listening." Harry scoffed loudly. "People listen because they love the spectacle. They love seeing a prince torn down. They love the drama." "Well," Allison said, smiling tightly, "you're giving them plenty today." Harry didn't appreciate the humor. His jaw tightened. "I came here to talk about serious issues," he said coldly. "Not to have my family trauma turned into breakfast entertainment." Allison's face softened. "Then stop treating every question like an attack." That hit him like a slap. He blinked, then glared. Dermot stared at the carpet. "You know what?" Harry said, voice dripping with disdain. "This is exactly why I left. People act like they want honesty, but what they really want is a prince performing a role for them again." He leaned forward, eyes locked on Allison. "I'm not here to amuse you." Allison's smile finally faltered. "Harry," she said quietly but firmly, "nobody asked you to." Silence. Real, thick, stunned silence. The audience didn't clap. They didn't murmur. They just stared, wide-eyed. Then Allison straightened and went back into presenter mode. "Right," she said with forced brightness, turning toward the camera. "After the break, we'll be talking about Harry's new documentary series and what viewers can expect. Stay tuned." The music rose. The red light switched off. Harry sank back into the sofa with a hard exhale, jaw locked. Dermot rubbed his temples. And Allison? Allison sat still as stone, giving Harry a look that said, "Push me one more time. Go on, I dare you." The moment the cameras blinked red again, the tension in the studio was so sharp you could almost hear it hum. Dermot inhaled deeply, pasting on a smile that trembled only slightly. Allison sat tall, shoulders back, her professionalism wrapped around her like armor. Harry, meanwhile, lounged on the sofa with the posture of a man doing everyone a favor, simply by existing there. "Welcome back to This Morning," Dermot said brightly. "We're continuing our conversation with Prince Harry." "Duke of Sussex," Harry corrected sharply without looking at him. Dermot blinked. "Right, apologies." Harry gave a thin, satisfied nod. Allison's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker, just a flicker of irritation in her eyes. "Harry," she said, clasping her hands, "before the break, we were discussing your brother William and the possibility of reconciliation. Let's broaden the scope a bit. Many viewers are curious about your relationship with the rest of the royal family. Your father, King Charles." Harry rolled his eyes dramatically. Allison paused. "Is there still communication there?" Harry shrugged, the gesture dripping with indifference. "He has people to speak for him. Assistants, advisors, handlers. I'm sure one of them has my number." Allison narrowed her eyes slightly. "So, you haven't spoken?" "Not lately," Harry said with a smirk. "I imagine he's too busy polishing the crown or something." Dermot winced again. "Harry, come on!" "What?" Harry snapped. "I'm not going to pretend everything is rosy just to make morning television more palatable." Allison kept her voice calm but firmer now. "We're not asking you to pretend. We're asking for honesty, not hostility." Harry leaned forward, eyes flashing. "Honesty makes people uncomfortable, Allison. That's not my problem." Dermot tried to lighten the mood. "Let's pivot for a moment." Harry cut him off sharply. "No, let's not pivot. Let's stop pretending the monarchy is some flawless fairy tale institution. I'm the only one willing to tell the truth." "You're not the only one," Allison said, her tone finally losing some of its softness. "You're just the one who keeps repeating it the loudest." Harry stiffened. "Are you suggesting I enjoy airing my trauma?" "I'm suggesting," she said carefully, "that maybe repeating the same wounds on every platform has made it harder for people to see the good work you're doing." Harry let out a short, humorless laugh. "People prefer drama over depth. That's why shows like this exist." The studio went utterly still. Dermot's eyes widened. Allison blinked once, slowly. "Shows like this?" she repeated. Harry waved a dismissive hand. "You know, light entertainment. Nothing too challenging." Something inside Allison's jaw twitched. "Harry," she said, her voice controlled but icy. "We've interviewed presidents, scientists, activists, survivors. You underestimate us." Harry smirked. "Do I?" Dermot muttered under his breath. "Oh, bloody hell." Allison chose not to acknowledge it. Instead, she leaned slightly forward, voice steady. "So, tell me, Harry, if you think this is beneath you, why are you here?" Harry's eyebrows lifted. "Publicity, obviously." The audience gasped, out loud this time. Dermot choked on air. Allison's face changed, just subtly, but enough for everyone watching to feel the shift. "I see," she said quietly. "Publicity." Harry nodded like he had just solved a math equation. "Yes, you asked me here because you needed a headline, and I came because I needed reach. It's transactional. Let's not dress it up." Allison's lips parted in disbelief. "Harry," she said, voice low, "we invited you because you claimed you had something meaningful to say." "I always have something meaningful to say," Harry shot back. "It's not my fault if people can't handle it." Dermot leaned forward reluctantly. "Harry, mate, look, you've said a lot today, but you're also shutting down every question like it's an attack. These aren't unfair questions." Harry placed a hand dramatically on his chest. "Unfair? Really? Asking about my family, about my mother, about my brother, about my trauma? That's fair, is it?" Allison's patience snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet precision of a woman who had been pushed too far. "You talk about your mother, Harry," she said, her voice trembling slightly not with anger, but with disappointment. "But I need to say this gently. You are not the only person in the world who has lost someone. You're not the only person who's suffered. Harry's eyes flared with indignation. And you're not the only one who knows pain, Allison continued, her voice steadying. But other people face their pain without lashing out at everyone trying to listen. Harry stared at her, stunned. And frankly, she added, you came here today acting like we owe you something. Harry blinked. I didn't. You did, Allison said firmly, every word dripping with entitlement since you sat down. Dermot looked between them like a man watching a fire spread. Harry's defensiveness surged. I'm entitled because I refuse to be silenced. I'm entitled because I speak the truth. No, Allison said calmly. You're entitled because you expect respect while giving. None. Boom. Silence. Pure seismic silence. Harry's jaw locked, his fists clenched. A producer off camera swallowed audibly. Dermot whispered, we should cut to break, but Allison lifted a finger without looking away from Harry. Not yet, she said. Harry leaned back slowly, fury burning in his eyes. Do you want honesty, Allison? He spat. Fine, the truth is... But Allison shook her head gently, almost sadly. No, Harry, we've heard enough truth from you for one day. A stunned beat of silence. Then the floor manager counted down. Going to break in 5, 4, 3, 2... The red light faded. Harry exhaled sharply, nostrils flaring. Allison sat back, chest rising and falling, collecting herself for the storm she knew was coming. Because one thing was certain, the next segment would be the one that finally blows everything up. The tension clung to the studio like smoke as the cameras flicked red once more. The break had done nothing, absolutely nothing, to calm the atmosphere. If anything, it made the temperature rise. Dermot cleared his throat as if trying to swallow fear itself. Allison sat straight, still professional, but her jaw held a firmness that hadn't been there in Part 1, Part 2, nor even at the beginning of Part 3. And Harry, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, sat forward, elbows on knees, eyes burning with indignation so sharp it sparked across the set. Welcome back, Dermot began carefully. We're here with Prince Harry interrupted sharply, is fine. Dermot blinked at Allison. She nodded once, as if silently telling him, just keep going. So, Dermot continued, we want to shift gears for a moment and talk about your charity work, your projects. Harry let out a loud, frustrated sigh that visibly grated across the room. Oh, for God's sake, he muttered. Are we really doing the PR questions now? How typical. Dermot's mouth fell open slightly. Harry, we're trying to give you a chance to talk about your actual work. Harry rolled his eyes. Please, everyone knows you'll drag me back to royal gossip within 30 seconds. Let's not insult each other. That was it. The audience heard the snap inside Allison, the emotional sound of someone who had been patient long enough. Harry, she said slowly, you came here today to talk about your work. That's why the team invited you. Harry laughed in a short, mocking burst. Don't patronize me, Allison. You invited me here because I'm a headline. So, let's not pretend you're suddenly interested in my foundations and outreach programs. Allison's lips pressed into a thin line. Dermot lifted a hand. Harry, mate. Harry swung his gaze toward him with ice. Don't mate me. I'm not your buddy. Dermot recoiled as if struck. The studio gasped. Allison inhaled, slow and deep. All right, she said, voice steady but trembling with contained frustration. Let's move forward. You've been in the headlines recently due to comments about your brother. There it is, Harry snapped, pointing a finger dramatically. See, straight back to William. You people are obsessed. Allison blinked. Harry, you're the one who publicly discussed him. You spoke about him in your interviews. You wrote about him in your book. You compared him to... Harry cut her off, voice rising with arrogance. I shared my truth, my story. If the media can't handle that, it's not my problem. Allison kept her voice measured. Barely. It becomes a problem when you attack anyone who asks about it. Harry's nostrils flared. Attack? You think I'm attacking you? Please. If I were truly attacking you, you'd know. Dermot whispered, Jesus Christ. Allison's shoulders squared. The temperature in the room shifted again, this time decisively. Harry, she said, voice low but firm, you're a guest here, and you're not behaving like one. We've tried to have a respectful conversation with you." Harry's laugh cut her off like a blade. "Respect?" he barked. "You ambush me with emotional manipulation and gossip. Respect has to be earned, Allison. And this show," he waved his hand in a dismissive arc, "hasn't earned mine." The audience actually gasped out loud. Allison froze. Dermot closed his eyes in defeat. The floor manager audibly muttered, "Oh, God." "Harry," Allison said softly, her voice finally trembling, not with fear, but with controlled anger. "That was uncalled for." Harry leaned back smugly. "Truth hurts, doesn't it?" Now, Allison Hammond was not someone who snapped easily. She was known for being warm, gentle, welcoming, the person you wanted to interview you. But what Harry had just said, the arrogance dripping from each word, was the final straw. She sat slowly back in her chair, folded her hands, and looked at him with piercing calm. "Okay," she said. "Let me say something, and listen carefully, Harry." Harry smirked. "Oh, this should be good." Dermot whispered, "Mate, don't—" But Harry ignored him. Allison leaned forward just an inch. It was enough to silence the whole room. "You keep coming on these platforms," she began quietly, "claiming you want to tell your story, your truth, your trauma. But what I see sitting in front of me today is not a man sharing his truth." Harry frowned, thrown off. "What I see," she continued, steady as stone, "is a man convinced everyone owes him something." Harry stiffened. "What I see," she went on, "is someone who expects the world to bow because he once had a title." A few audience members clapped involuntarily. Harry's jaw clenched. "Are you done?" "No," Allison said, her voice rising an inch. "Not yet." Dermot's hands were on his face. "What I see," Allison pressed, "is someone who demands respect while offering none. Someone who lashes out at every question, every host, every person who doesn't feed his ego exactly the way he wants." Harry scoffed loudly. "Oh, please!" "And someone," she finished, "who is mistaking arrogance for strength." Harry sat frozen. Allison inhaled deeply, gathered herself, and said the words that would break the internet by nightfall. "You know what, Harry? We're done." Harry stared at her, stunned. "Excuse me?" Allison stood up slowly. "This isn't working. This isn't journalism anymore. It's emotional abuse, and we don't tolerate that on this show." Harry looked around, almost laughing. You're throwing me out?" Dermot whispered. "Allison, are we?" "Yes," she said firmly. "We are." She turned toward the cameras. "Producers, we're ending this interview now." Harry sputtered. "You can't be serious." Allison looked back at him with unwavering calm. "This isn't Buckingham Palace," she said softly. "And I'm not one of your courtiers." A beat. "Please leave the studio." The room erupted. The audience gasped. Dermot nearly fell off his chair. The crew stood frozen like statues. Harry stood, his face flushed red with shock and fury. "You'll regret this," he hissed. Allison lifted her chin. "No, Harry. I'll sleep fine." Harry ripped off his microphone, threw it onto the sofa, and stormed off toward the exit. Cameras captured every step. As he disappeared off screen, Dermot exhaled hard. Blimey. Allison turned back to the camera, composed once more. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said softly, "thank you for staying with us. We'll be right back." The red light blinked off. The studio fell silent. Everyone knew they had just witnessed not an interview, but a televised implosion. And that was Prince Harry's explosive appearance on this morning, a moment that started with tension and ended with a clash no one will forget. What do you think? Did Allison do the right thing by ending the interview, or did Harry finally cross a line that couldn't be ignored?